Just one moment. All right. All right. Do you see my paint pad?
Yes, we do.
All right. So get this. So if this is the head right here. All right. Most athletes, what they do is they enter right here, and what they do is, you know, their hands are usually really close together. So what happens is they skull outwards, and then they skull inwards, and then they finally push the water back. So on the other hand, again, they're sculling out, they're sculling in it, they're sculling, and they're pushing water back. All right. So this is, so again, like they're if you see the video of my hands, they're sculling outwards, and then they're sculling inwards before they finally push water back. Now, this is literally you pushing energy. You know, you're pushing energy and water outwards, and then you're pushing energy and water inwards. But what part of this is actually pushing water back or pushing water in a direction that actually helps you move forward, right? No part of that.
Right.
So ideally, what you want an athlete to do is you want them to enter just wider than their face, and you want them to pull straight back, right? Because, you know, this is A and this is B, and the fastest route from A to B is a straight line. Well, for if we go back to what James Guy is doing and what a lot of you know, age groupers and younger athletes are doing is again, you know, they're entering right here, and all this energy moving outwards, this is not helping them go forward. So what you achieve if you're able to enter just wider than your face. Okay, so let's just talk about this point right here. If you're just able to enter right here and just move straight back, this area right here, guys, and for everyone that's here, this is fat in your race. This is fat in your stroke. Like this is literally fat that's doing nothing for you. You can get rid of it. All right. If you want another way to think about it, look at it right here. So right here, this is where you enter. And this is the potential of every one stroke. So let's call this 1.0. This is 100% potential. This is where you start. If you can look at this in this stroke, so this whole area right here is thrown away. So essentially right here, this is actual water that you're pulling back. So if you want to quantify it, you're from every one butterfly stroke that most people take, they're achieving 50% efficacy with every one stroke, right?
If that, because a lot of them, they go out wide, then they come in, and then they go right back out, and they don't spend enough time just moving water back.
Oh, guys, hey, you know, Doc Councilman, he was the guy, I believe, that created, like, if I can just kind of focus your attention right here, like every stroke should be like the letter S. That's some textbook kind of stuff, right? Like your pull, whether it's freestyle or butterfly, it should be close to the letter S. And James Guy, if we go back to his video after this, you're going to see how, like, he starts the top, he sculls outward, begins at S, and then he sculls inward, that inward part of the S, and then his hands connect just below his belly button to where his thumbs are almost touching, and then he sculls outwards. Like, it is the S. Like, there is not a better example of somebody that swims that letter S. Well, it's not efficient just because, he's moving water in directions that are not backwards necessarily, right? So again, if you can see my cursor, this whole area right here is just thrown away. I mean, this is just time and energy just wasted, right? So again, if we can kind of move closer to this model right here, you're going to be a whole lot more efficient. But here's the catch. The problem with most people is they're not able to establish what we in swimming call anchoring your hands. Now, ideally, if you watch a swimming race where the swimmer enters their hands in comparison to the lane lines, and our lane lines are blue and white. So if you plant your hands in the blue area your hands should hypothetically in practice actually stay right there, whereas your body moves past your hands. So it's not your hands that move past your body in any one stroke. It's your body that moves past your hands. Another way to think about it is, imagine if there was a hose or a rope underwater and you were to grab the rope and pull yourself forward underwater. Your hands are staying in place and your body is moving past it. And essentially what you want to do is you want to be able to replicate just that in your stroke. The issue with most athletes that are in swimming is they're not able to anchor their hands. So I'm going to open up a new one just to kind of redraw that same photo. But we have athletes that are creating that much loss, and again, you have some athletes nowadays that are just sculling outwards just a little bit before they scull back. So this, if we're looking at so this is 0.25 and this is 0.5. So this right here is 25% lost in area potential, whereas this right here is 50%. I think this area right here, for those that are sculling outwards just a little bit so that they can anchor their hands, it's worth it. It's just fine.
Yep.
And again,
I think that at that point when they're sliding out is also when they're riding forward and their hips are still on the way up, as opposed to just pressing right away at the front of the stroke. The hips will stay lower and you might be able to go faster, but you're not going to last the whole 100. So that's just buying them that little bit of time, setting up, going out to the corners to set it, sliding forward just a little bit longer. So maybe they can have a last 10 yards and not totally run out of gas.
Listen, at the end of the day, if you're not dying at the end, you probably didn't do it right. Again, there's only one way to know that you gave it your all. And when you get to that level, that idea takes a new form. I mean, when your age group or just kind of swimming recreationally, you give it your best, but for a lot of athletes, including myself, you go into the race and you're getting blurry vision, the lack of oxygen in your head is hurting, and you're taking it to a new level just because you have to give everything if you're going to win it. But I do get what you're saying, Mike.
Did you make any or pull up any clips yourself that you want to show some videos of? I just like showing different angles and views. I have some others we can show, but if you had already queued any up, let's watch one of yours.
I don't. I saw your videos and I liked your videos, and I think there is something that I think there's a lot that we can talk about.
Let's quit sharing your screen, and I'll bring up another one. It's just fun to keep having new things up on the screen, even though we like to hear you talk. If we can watch something else too, that'd be good. And you can break this one down. This is, once I share mine, this is I like to get different angles, and underwater is certainly great. I think most people don't get to watch good underwater video footage enough. But this is a front view, not that one. See if I can get to where we need to. Let's see if it's that one. Yeah. So this is a front view, and I noticed this was a super narrow pull. Not that you'll like or dislike it. It's just a different view to look at. We can see what we see here, and if you like it or not. And I don't even know what swimmer that is. We'll have to back it up or see if they put it in the announcement of it. And I might play this again because it was right at the beginning. And maybe I'll show it again in slower motion. I think it's going to go slow now. Here we go. Yeah, so that's that. He's just going, there's not much out sweep at all right there.
Yeah. And I have to emphasize that again, there's not necessarily any one right way to do it. I think this is Wu Peng of China.
Yeah, that's right. It is.
Yeah, because I swam with the guy and he's got a Michigan cap, but he didn't go to
Yep.
Michigan, you know. But anyways, long story, just kind of where I was going at. Like I don't want anybody here to think that that what I'm saying is right. You know, again, you know, with Dressel, you know, and especially with Phelps, you know, had that out sweep and a lot of what he did. If you look at it from a physics point of view, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You know, but you know, with Wu Peng right here, it should be noted that he was a 200 flyer. And yeah, you know, with Mike Bottom, we did spend a whole lot of time looking at the shape of our pull, and with Wu, his hands are coming a little closer than one would like, but again, since he swims a 200 fly, there is a slight glide between the strokes, and that is, you know, the period when he's just taking a break. But yeah, you know, he's got a very, very narrow catch, and this is something that you would want a sprinter to do, just because again we're talking about that front pull, just going straight back.
I
And
noticed on this one, and I think they talk about it if we listen to the cues in it. He was almost doing both of his kicks out in front. It was kind of weird. His kick timing's really different than what most people. There it is, kick, kick. It's almost like I call that survival fly for masters, where they do both kicks with their arms out in front.
I'll tell you what, this guy, he would go gambling all night and then come to practice, straight to practice, and you know, he was just kind of a go kind of guy. Um, Boy, incredibly powerful. Um, Look at high elbows. He establishes high elbows right away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his hands are a little closer, but it's very, very common for a 200 fly stroke. You know, his first big kick is it's really, really big, and the second one is small.
So we've been talking about how there are different ways to swim the fly, and people have different widths of their catch and their pull and things like that. But what do you feel are kind of the non-negotiable things that everybody needs to be doing on a regular basis in their fly? And then how do you get them to learn it or execute it and not be doing full stroke fly? Like, what percentage of the time do you think swimmers should be swimming full stroke versus breaking it down into segments so that they can execute it right?
So again, you know, everybody's body is different, but I think that, you know, I think one direction that we have to go in. There are two things that I need to say. Head position. As soon as you take your breath, what you look at, you know, the top swimmers of the world today, especially in the 50 and the 100, but they take a breath, and as soon as they get that breath of air, they throw their faces back down, right? We all know that the body wants to be in line with the neck, and after this video, I kind of want to illustrate that in my you know, in paint.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, and the second thing is the kick, and the, you know, it's got to be, you have to keep doing your kick and repeating your kick. It's got to have a constant beat. I don't like big kick, small kick, big kick, small kick. I think, you know, kick, 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 kind of like the freestyle stroke. You know, freestyle kick does not stop. You know, you see distance swimmers, they do like two kicks and then they like roll over on their side and they like pause, kick, 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 pause, kick, 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 pause. It's never like a 6-beat kick. A 6-beat kick, there is no stopping. So similar to that, I think having, you know, equal kicks, you know, and amplitude is really, really important because it helps just kind of that forward moving energy. And I'm just thinking about, you know, a torpedo or propeller. You know, imagine a propeller working and then just stopping, working and then stopping, working and then stopping. It's gotta keep this forward energy.
I remember Pablo did almost all of his kicking on his back to try to get that more equal tempo with his kick and have equal up and down beat of his kick. Do you do that quite a bit too, of doing more dolphin kicking on the back to do that, or?
So if you wanna do it right, then kick on your back is just as much as possible. And a lot of it has to do with, kind of your head positioning, which, I'll share my screen right now. And I kind of want to talk about, head positioning and its relations. So if this is your head, all right, wait. All right, if this is your head and this is your cap, this is your face, your body, your legs, and your arms, all right? So what I said is your neck, or your body wants to be in the same line with your neck, right? So in this area right here, if this is the water right here, just notice that, if you're looking forward, and when you get tired, what's going to happen is your legs are going to get tired, and then your hips are going to get lower. And what happens is your body so desperately wants to be in the same line with your neck. So what happens is, if you're looking at a 45-degree angle, then your body is going to want to fall down at a 45-degree angle, right? But if you're swimming and this is your cap and these are your legs and you're swimming fly, what happens is, if you're looking downward, then your hips are going to be really, really high. And the goal is, again, to have as little water on top of your back as possible. Whereas up here, you're noticing all this water. Now, this isn't proportional and this isn't real, but you can kind of tell that, that there will be, a couple more inches of water if you're on top of your back, if you're looking slightly forward, because you're looking forward, your legs and your hips want to be in the same line with your neck, so your legs are going to fall down. So back to the kind of the kick that you were talking about, Mike, if you got a kickboard and your head is looking upward and you're looking forward, then your body, when it does get tired, it's wanting to fall to be in the same line with your neck. If you want to try this in practice, if you're doing a starfish, like a front side starfish, and your arms are out and your legs are out and you're flat in the water looking downward, you can lift your head and see what happens to your body when you lift your head. If you change nothing else, keep your arms outwards and your legs outwards, stay relaxed, but just lift your head. Your body's going to want to fall to be in the same line with your neck. But from that same position, when your body is vertical, if you were to put your face down, what's going to happen is your body is going to want to float back up to the surface. So with Pablo and kicking on your back in general, when you're kicking on your back or on your stomach with a snorkel, looking downwards with a finesse snorkel, when you're looking downwards, your hips are going to be higher. But whether we want to believe it or not, kicking on your back is it's more natural to, because when you're on your back, your hips and your spine is in line with the neck, and it's just a more natural movement. If you want to become a greater kicker, I do recommend you spend some time kicking on your side, because you're feeling a whole lot more mobile while kicking on your side. Most elite level swimmers, when they're underwater, kicking underwater dolphin kick, they're always going to tilt to one side. I haven't heard a good explanation as to why people kick tilted to one side, but one thing is fact, and that is you just feel better when you're slightly tilted. All right. So again, if you're looking at this picture, if you're looking forward at a 45-degree angle in relation to the wall, your hips and your legs are going to want to fall 45 degrees, right? But if you're looking downwards, then or if you even tuck your chin into your chest, then your hips are really going to be on top of the water, but that's not natural either. I think if you can just keep a straight line of your head, just flat, all this water can just easily go over your cap and over your body. And again, another way to think about it is, why are trucks so much slower than a sports car? It's the line of the body, right? So if, or an airplane, it's designed to have airflow just over it and past it. And again, this isn't me, throwing props at Finesse, but Finesse has this, incredible dome cap, and again, this is everything to do with the flow of water over your cap, and the idea is that if you got a nice line from your spine to the top of the head, the water flow is gonna be as little resistance as possible. So again, back to what I was saying, back to the fly stroke. Here, I'm going to stop sharing this because I think it's more important for us to see me. And forgive my bedboards behind me. This is kind of my storage room / office. But, as soon as you breathe and your arms at your back, you want to drop your face before you recover your arms. The idea is more and more in breaststroke, for example, and also in butterfly, as soon as you see people take their breath, they're dropping their faces down, right? And this is just about redirecting that energy in the right direction. Whereas if your head is up, if you take your breath and your head is still up as you're recovering your arms, all that energy and water that you pushed back, it's driving you upward, because again, your spine wants to be in line with the top of your head or your neck. So if your head is up and you're pushing water back, you're going to go upwards instead of forwards. Does that make sense?
It sure does. The thing that some people mess up, though, you're talking about that alignment, and that's so important. But a lot of people that come up too high then slam their head too low, and they're breaking their head off their spine line. And by what you're saying, the head up definitely makes the hips drop. But if just slams your head down, it didn't bring your hips up. So it is that getting the head in alignment with the whole body, and you press in or get the face back down, but water flows over long straight lines. And when you put a bend in it, either direction, you create all that turbulence and slows you down. And that was one of the things that Glenn Mills was talking about when they asked him in one of these other webinars, was he filmed so many people underwater, and what did he find was the biggest error mistake? And it was like nobody gets into their line. Elite swimmers do, but your average swimmer is always bending and curved and arched and all these things that are scrubbing their speed, and they're so concerned with their stroke instead of get into a nice straight line and maintain that line as you're pulling or whatever else you're doing.
I said it kind of in the beginning of the meeting, puberty and growing up, it's, you're just trying to figure things out. And I think everything in moderation, it's really, really important, whether it's your swimming or how you eat or whatever it is that you do, when you throw your face back down, just know how far to throw it. And I think a good way to just kind of tell is just make sure that when your head is in the water, you're looking straight down and not forward or not backwards, just look straight down. And chances are, if your face is like 99.9% people, you probably got it right.
Yep. Hey, I want to show one more video, and this is turns, because certainly with adults or masters, they learned old school turns a long time ago and haven't really stayed up on what goes on in a turn, and there's so much time to be gained there. So, you can talk a little bit about what you know about turns or what you focus on, but let me share my screen and we'll pull one up, because I think it's another important thing to hit here. All right, and I'm going to share that, and I'm going to get back to here, and let's see where it is. I can't see it. Maybe it's this one. There it is. I think it's that one. Butterfly turn. Let's get it full screen. This is where we make John Mix happy with that suit on. The weight off the wall of just being in a straight line before you start to kick, to me, is a super important thing for master swimmers and people that aren't in top level fitness. I was watching your turns and coming off walls, and at full race pace to go a 50-second 100-meter butterfly, you don't waste any time. You push off and you're into your kick and you're going. But I think most people, there should be a little bit of a pause when they come off their wall to ride the push off distance before the kick starts, because so many people leave the wall, and as soon as they leave, they're bending their knees and putting the brakes on immediately. So, you can just get to the flags with a push off. You don't have to dolphin kick at all. And then the kicks can take you past that. Push, set the line, and then the kicks happen. So on a turn, I call it, you try to hit the wall like a line, and then you turn in the tightest ball you can get in, rounding your back as you pull your knees forward, and then shooting back off into a straight line. But I'd like to hear what little details of the turn that you think about or teach to your athletes.
So I kind of want to preface this as saying, like, the moment you enter the water from your start, and to a lesser degree, but to a similar, just kind of the point is, similarly, when you push off the wall, that is the fastest you're probably going to be going during that one lap, right? So anything that you do, you should just know. I just kind of think about, the first day of school, if you can kind of remember back then, your teacher would say, all of you have A's right now. All of you have 100%. Right?
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
Anything that you do from this point on could only bring that grade down. So similarly, as soon as you dive into the pool, you're going the fastest you're ever going to be going at any point of that one race. Anything that you do after that entry is only going to slow you down. So what I like to teach is, as soon as you enter the water, just wait a second or two, depending on who you are, and then begin your kick. But when you begin your kick, you don't want to begin with this super big kick. You want to start with a smaller kick and get bigger, right? And before you break out, you never want that breakout to have a small kick. Another way to think about it, and I love this, was, if you watch basketball players dunk, they never shorten their steps before they approach the rim. As they approach the rim, their steps get bigger and bigger, right? And this is true in track and field and long jump, and it's no different in swimming. So when you push off the wall, or when you start, going for that long jump, you start with short steps, and you get bigger, because with every step, you're just trying to maintain that speed. And this is all to do with, you're pushing off and you have this incredible speed behind you. And if you start with the bending your knees or with a really, really big kick, you're just slowing yourself down. So again, it just kind of in practice, and what you can do is just know a couple of things. First, when you push off the wall, allow yourself just a second or a second and a half to kind of redirect what direction you want to go, whether you need to go a little more down or flatten out or go up. Know that your hand or your finger position is very, very important. When you go to work today and you're driving, stick your hand out the window and just have your hand be out the window like this as you're driving, and just throw your pinky out. And with the wind, you're going to notice that with the wind, it's going to carry your arm off. If you keep your fingers together and you're driving, you point your fingers up with enough speed, your hand's going to go upwards. If you point your fingers down, it's going to go downwards. So when you push off into your streamline, know what direction your fingers are pointed, right? If you push off the wall, if you push off in the middle of the lane and just, and just pop out your right pinky, you're going to notice that your body's going to sway to the right. So finger direction is really, really important. It's going to dictate what direction your body's going to go. Again, when you push off, give it like a second or second and a half before you start kicking it. Don't start with a huge kick. Start with a small kick and build it up. Back to the turn. I think that was James in that, he was doing that or executing that turn in a pool with gutters. So he was grabbing on the wall and using the wall to kind of bring his body in. So that's not a natural wall in a competitive environment. Competitive pools, they've got flat walls with, you're never going to have anything to grab onto to kind of help bring you forward. But a lot of things that, James is actually doing really, really, really right is he's hitting the wall and he's wanting to curl up into the smallest possible ball. So what you can do right away, it requires no athleticism, is in your approach, and as soon as you hit the wall, get in the habit of really sucking your knees or throwing your knees into your chest or toward your face, right? And this is also true in the freestyle turn. What you want to do is you're swimming toward the wall, and you want to throw your face in your knees and throw your knees into your face. I've never met anybody that's hit their face with their knees, right? It's never happened. But if it happens, I would love to hear from you guys and tell me that it happened to me. It's not going to happen, right? But what happens is that if this is your face and these are your knees, if you are able to move them simultaneously and violently together, what's going to happen is they're going to come together. They're going to squeeze this water between, and it's going to create this lift in your body because you're pressing water downwards with your body. And it's going to get your hips up and over really, really quickly. So in the butterfly turn or the breaststroke turn, similarly, when you hit the wall, if you suck your knees into your chest, it's going to help rotate your body over onto your back really, really quickly, but all in the spirit of creating the smallest possible ball, just because it's creating the least resistance in water and in your turn. So those are things that, you know, you don't need talent for. You just have to know that, you know, you're going to violently throw your knees into your chest. And yeah, you know, ideally you don't want to turn over onto your side on the wall. If you want to do it really, really, really well, what you want to do is you want to hit the wall, almost fall into your back and push off slightly on your back and rotate onto your chest. And how do you rotate onto your chest? Well, if you push off on your back into a streamline, just kind of take your streamline in your hands and you turn it slightly sideways. With the velocity of the water that you're pushing off at, it's going to naturally rotate you onto your stomach. So again, know where your hands are and know what direction your fingers are pointing, because your body, with enough speed, it's going to go to however you place your hands.
Right. Yep. Hey, so we are going to get ready to wrap it up. I'm going to let you guys ask a couple questions. I do want to tell my little story real quick of the practice that I was thinking of. And I've had the pleasure of Milo coming to some of our master's practices too, where he lived in Orange County again for a short amount of time. And I was so surprised, having not seen him for so many years, to find out that he was changing into a coaching career, because as a young kid, he didn't seem to be, he was so fast and talented, but he didn't really dig workouts the most. And it was surprising to hear he decided to go into coaching. But I was sub-coaching for Salo at a practice one time, and Salo was traveling or something. And I imagine at the time it was Mike Cavic, and he went to high school at Tustin High School. I imagine it was probably like shortly after CIF or something like that. So they were still swimming, but Dave was off doing something. So I'm coaching the senior group, and I'm giving this set, and Mike is being lazy. He's just, and I'm calling him Mike because he's not Mike anymore. So this was when he was a kid. Wasn't really trying or doing much and not executing very well. And, you know, I was frustrated with the group because I was a substitute teacher basically, and they were just farting around, cruising. So finally, you know, I'm trying to get Mike to work a little bit, and he goes, well, why don't you just give me a get out swim or something, and we'll see what we can do. And I go, all right. So I let him get up 50 from the blocks, and he's got a big drag suit on. He doesn't have a cap or anything. And he goes, what do I have to do? I go, well, you went 19 recently in 50 free in high school. Why don't you go 20 point anything at practice? And he looks at me, and he gets up there. He goes 20 point at practice from the blocks with the drag suit on, no cap, no dome lid, no nothing. And the crowd goes wild. Everybody's all happy, and off they went. So we had a shortened workout, but I was impressed with the 20 point just randomly at practice. And he got out of there, and I was like, he was kind of an ass, but he sure can swim fast. But it was so great to kind of reconnect with you years later and see how you developed. And you just have so much to share, because I was looking it up. I mean, I've known you for a long time, but didn't really know the path you took. And we don't have a lot of time here, but I was interested in finding out more about you having a whole year off for your back and having surgery and stuff. But you've been through so many great coaches in your history of swimming and the race club and things like that, that I'm sure each one of those coaches has brought something to you that you've used and now have in your own arsenal to teach athletes. That's really cool. I really think it's important when a swimmer's gone through a lot of different coaches and gotten them from everybody instead of just their whole career kind of under one coach. So,
growing up, I was bullied. I was the kid with a different name, and growing up, it was just kind of easier on me and for people just to call me Mike. So I kind of adopted the name Mike when I was a kid. I
like that name.
Yeah, and Mike is a great name. Yeah, and all the greatest athletes, they're named Mike Tyson, Mike Jordan, Mike Phelps. But long story short, I wasn't a perfect kid. No kid is, but I was arrogant. I was very, very proud, and and years later, especially after my back surgery, when I lost my natural abilities, it forced me to take sit back and to realize where I was weak and to focus on my weaknesses and make them strong. And that was when I started looking into different things as to how I can get better. And you become a sponge when you're forced to, and you learn as much as possible from as many people as possible to hope that something will work or something will click. And yeah, I'm not saying I'm perfect today, but I'm happier than I've ever been. And to be old and wise someday, you got to be young and stupid, and there was a whole lot of stupid in me. So I look at this coaching job, and man, I love going to the pool every day. But just the idea of people giving me their dreams or putting me in the co-pilot seat of their dreams is just such a gift. Tell me what it is that you want to achieve. I got a couple of ways to help you do it. Yeah, I love this sport. I could not imagine my life without it. And I was in sales, learned a lot in sales, but it wasn't me helping others as much as myself helping myself. And I hated that, because that was exactly who I was as a kid. Everything I did was selfish and for me, and that wasn't who I wanted to be. And for me to give back and to help others, I thought about going to the public domain. And for me, just to coach, I'm not only helping others, but I'm helping them achieve their dreams, and damn it feels good.
Yeah, great. I'm going to take off the mutes, and we'll see if anybody's got a quick question for you. And I'm going to actually change my screen here a little bit. See, if you do have a question, why don't you raise your hand? Maybe we'll just do it that way. All right, John Mix, let's go ahead and get you off the mute. Go ahead and talk.
Actually, it's not a question, but it's a comment about kicking on your side and the slight angle.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'd never, there was an article written, I think it's 1995, Scientific American. It was Bob Gillette, who was Misty's coach. And what he talked about in this butterfly is he says, if we're kicking straight up and down underwater, there's the distance between the swimmer and the top of the pool surface and the bottom. You're kicking and you're creating vortices and eddies. And there's a certain distance at which they actually change direction, propel you forward. And if you're doing it in a nice deep pool, then you can get to the right level that the vortices and eddies take effect. But otherwise you can't. And so he always said, well, it's this fish kick article, and it talks about rolling on your side because there's less disturbances in the water. So you're working with less turbulent water. I guess it'd be like, why does a boat travel faster in smooth water? And it's because at a certain speed, the power going one way changes directions and helps you out. So just an interesting comment.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, the depth of the pool really does make a huge difference. I've heard different explanations, and none of them have ever necessarily have never necessarily satisfied, just my thought process. I know that it has a lot to do with your center of buoyancy, right? And for that, everybody's different. But, when you're slightly tilted on your side, that buoyancy, it kind of shifts. Whereas if you're just flat on your stomach or flat on your back, that center of buoyancy doesn't necessarily gel with the pressures of the water. But anyways, it's to be disputed. I don't know, but I'm still waiting for that one person to kind of blow my mind.
It might also be that you tighten your core a little bit more. You can imagine, right? You talked about that sharp piercing arrow traveling flat, that little roll to the side. It might just, lock you into that body position better too.
Boy, John, make some new piece of technology that can kind of drive that point home, man.
All right, guys. Well, let's see here. It looks like we got Ming to ask a question here. Go ahead, Ming.
2 questions. One, why were we taught the S, and now coming back, should we learn the straight direct pull? And then the other question is, was the back injury related to swimming?
Okay, so let me just get the second question out of the way. I think it's part genetics. I always try to do everything right technically, but I think if you do anything too much, it's bad for you. If you drink enough water, it's bad for you. If you do anything in great unnatural amounts, I think it's bad for you. I think training 6 hours a day is bad for you. It's what I was doing, but it's what you got to do to be competitive. But I think there is a genetic aspect to it. There are some back problems in my family, and it was only accelerated because I was doing a whole lot of unnatural things with my body. To address your first question, why were you taught the S? If we know anything about history, a lot of history is cyclical. I think that jean shorts are going to come back one day, right? And I think that if you look at stroke in the 1960s, they were doing certain things, and then things that they were doing in the 60s disappeared in the 70s, but then it came back at the end of 70s and the beginning of the 80s, and everything kind of comes back with slight adjustments. Again, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just looking at it from a physics point of view. If you looked at kind of my drawings, I think it's hard to dispute, the rationale behind it. But again, if you're unable to anchor your hand, and people, they skull outwards just because they need to skull to anchor their hands before they can push the water back. I would definitely move away from the S figure, and if anything else, move toward the P figure. Right? Like you want to skull outwards and then you want to skull inwards, but at your hips area, you want to push the water backwards without keeping it going more toward your belly button, right? So everything is just is an effort to move forward, and the S, if you're pushing water outwards and then you're pushing water inwards, none of that is actually pushing water backwards necessarily.
I talk about trying to press from your chin to your belly button in a straight line. Like if you can get that backward motion, because they're going out, they're not even hitting the narrowest part of their stroke till almost at their belly button, instead of just from all the way, actually, like you were showing in your video or your drawings, almost above your head. The longer that straight back pull is, the longer you're going to be traveling forward, versus, some sort of out and down and up and in and out and back and all this S and super deep, just not too deep and straight back.
Yeah. I would recommend not necessarily entering the top of your stroke with your pinkies down, but just flat hands. You just don't want to enter in with your thumbs. But if you do enter with your thumbs, just try to have your hands be as flat as possible, just so that when you enter, you're not automatically setting yourself up just to skull outwards and then skull inwards, right? But if you enter with your hands flat or your pinkies kind of first, look, like my hands are pointed straight back. All I got to do is just make a straight line. But I have to emphasize, you need to do whatever it is you need to do to anchor yourself, right? So instead of doing like the S figure, do like a P figure, and then just make sure at some point mid P or the P part, the top of the P part, just start pushing water backwards. Everything is directed just to push water backwards in a straight line.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Kim.
That same thing, do you have a drill or a way to help us learn how to anchor our hands more in front, or maybe that softer P? Then just by masters especially, they've got muscle memory that's hard to change. So we're trying to help them with words and descriptions visually, but maybe by you helping Mike and I, we can explain to the swimmers, especially the ones on the call here, they're interested in that.
So what I know about masters swimmers, or most masters swimmers, is, a lot that I've done have been like, just don't do drills, don't do sculls, just let us swim, right? Because you want to work out that any anger, any frustrations, just let me go swim. Well, the truth is, to establish that anchor, you have to do a lot of sculling. I think John, I know you guys used to sell these finger paddles. You have slightly different paddles now, but again, having paddles just on your fingers, just not the whole paddle, but just especially finger paddles, but you can use big paddles too. You can just have your elbows up and just scull, push water outwards, inwards, outwards, inwards, outwards, inwards. Go from a big paddle to a smaller paddle, which is called the finger paddle. And just feel the water on your fingers pushing outwards, inwards, outwards, inwards. And if you guys want to play on the wall while you're waiting for a set, just start sculling, just start sculling on the wall in front of you very, really quickly. And you're going to create this little whirlpool. And again, just playing with the water, sculling, it's helping you feel the water. And again, I think that there is no better way to really establish or to learn that anchor than just sculling. You have to scull, right?
So all the swimmers on the call, when we start asking to do a lot of sculling in front, you'll be the first one to jump in, so the rest of the crowd will go along and agree, oh yes, we want to. Right, guys?
Sculling really hard. Dave Salo, which he was my club coach, and he's the main guy at Irvine Novas. But that was his MO. We did a lot of sculling, and it sucked. It can be really hard if you want it to be.
A lot of people are training right now in backyard pools because we don't have any pools open, and they're struggling with what to do and getting bored, and they're putting on just a waist belt and swimming against the cable and just mindlessly going. And it's like, you can do a lot of sculling in a short pool or with the cable on and stuff and make it pretty efficient. I went to a pool with my wife, and we alternated doing cable swims, and the other swimmer, when they're not on the cable, is sculling forward and backwards and stuff. And it's really cool because it's stuff we don't do that much at practice on a normal basis, because especially if you have 5 or 6 people a lane, sculling variation of speed is way different. They're all over the top of each other, and it's pretty annoying. But now we have this opportunity for those of you that are in those little short pools, or even in a freaking hot tub, you could scull in place a little bit. It's a really good exercise. I know the paddles that they're using, or that they have now at Finis, are pretty neat. It just has your middle finger goes through there, and it's designed like asymmetrical, so you can have the fin of the paddle to the outside or to the inside. So it works on your strength a little differently. And all you have to do is wear the paddle on the opposite hand. It's pretty cool. That's it. Yeah. You can wear it that way, or you can switch hands, and then it's on the other side.
So, again, this is this is like a multi paddle, but it's if you were to use it on the right hand, you see like the outside of the paddle there's more paddle here, so it's forcing you to try to fill water on the outside. If you take the same paddle and you switch sides, you can also feel it like on.
You just wear it the same way, but you put it on the other hand.
Yeah, or that, right? Yeah.
Actually, props to Milo. So he was in our office, and it was Tim Elson and I, and we had a lot of Play-Doh sitting around, and we were we were trying to replicate this drill that Nort Thornton would do, where he'd have the guys try and swing with a ping pong ball. But he said the problem when you swim with that ping pong ball is it doesn't feel normal in the water. But it was supposed to help you, figure out how to engage your inner muscles or your outer muscles. And Cavic leaned over to one of our engineers, and he held his hand out there, and he says, yeah, at the moment that you're too much this way or too much this way, he says, that's the moment the guy next to you is going to beat you. You've got to figure out how to be able to put equal pressure out there. And I think the light bulb went off in David's head. And next thing you know that ISO paddle finally became alive. So thanks, Milo.
Yeah, of course. Man. I think Andrea had a question.
Dre, you're on mute. We got to get you off of mute. There we go.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, you're on mute.
You can call me AJ. When you call me Andrea, it gets me freaked out. On butterfly, when you do your butterfly stroke, how far back do you pull? I always feel like if you pull too far back with your arms too straight, it's too hard and you get a little stuck to recover. So how far back, and at the end of your stroke, do you kind of sweep your palms out to keep your recovery more momentum based and more relaxed with less effort, and keep your head shoulders low?
It's a really, really good question. I remember, I had these nightmares and flashbacks from my economics, class, and and every question we had in econ was answered with depends, right? Everything depends on different, how long are your arms? How long are your legs? How do they work together? And, and I think to kind of answer your question, more and more people are moving in the direction of not finishing their strokes because of that pause in the back. If you push your arms all the way back, then you're pausing. And it's about energy just moving constantly, So what a lot of people do is they finish their strokes just before it gets to their hips, and they sweep out. Right. So that energy, that kinetic energy from sweeping that water outwards, it's going to help carry your arms to the front. I wouldn't push all the way back, AJ. I would.
The Chinese dude, though, he went really far back, and I felt like that kind of gave him that kind of lopey, pausey kind of, double kick fly. I felt like it's because of where his hands were coming back, and I think he just slowed down so much, he had to kick him over or something.
Well, Wu Peng, his legs were incredibly short. So, he had to compensate with his arms for the different proportions in his body. If you looked at him, like his legs were like, I'm partly joking, but it was like 25% of his body, right? His torso was longer and his arms were long. So, he worked with what he had. But in any case, for most people, I wouldn't necessarily recommend finishing the stroke. I would tell my age groupers to finish their strokes just to have a platform from where to work. But yeah, that's kind of my answer to you.
Thank you.
All right, gang. Well, I think we got to wrap this up. We've cruised over an hour, and thanks so much for getting up early for us, Milo, and spending time with us. And it's so awesome to be able to, dive a little deeper into some specifics of a stroke and training. And we covered a lot of different material today and still only scratched the surface of it. But we really appreciate you spending time with us, and hope you'll drop into Nova's and swim with us when you are in town again. And hopefully we get to have more than one per lane by the time you show up.
Guys, at the end of the day, it's about love, and it's about friendship. Love of swimming, love of your friends, love of whatever, right? And again, I did this because of my history with you, Mike. You're part of my childhood in one way or another, but I'm always here to help, guys. And of course, when I do come visit my family in Tustin, I'll be dropping in.
Great. All right, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll
you, Mike.
see you, for soup cans tomorrow.
Thank you.
We'll probably put in a little bonus fly set for Milo with the cans.
Thank you.
All right, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it.